Alright, this podcast is going to go over adding access control lists to your network to control traffic flow. Right now, our router is letting everything pass through it, and we may want to limit what traffic can pass through. And we're going to do that using access control lists initially. First thing you want to do is make sure that your network is functioning properly. And the way we do that is go to my web server by domain name. Make sure you can get to that. And then from the RichNet, there will be a station set up for testing. You want to test going to your domain name, your domain by domain name, and that should work. So once you verify that works, then it's time to add the access control list. When we create access control list on the router, a couple things you need to decide. One, you need to decide, do you want to do a standard access control list or a extended access control list? And the answer is almost always you want to do an extended access control list. Standard access control list can only filter based on source IP address. Extended can filter on any number of things. So standard have some uses as far as like NAT and controlling telnet access to the router and stuff like that. But generally speaking, if you're going to want to be filtering traffic, you're going to want to use a extended access control list. The next thing you need to decide is where you're going to filter traffic. If we look at our network here, we have two interfaces. We have multiple interfaces. We have two sub interfaces, and we have one physical interface to the outside. So here's FA00. Over here on this side, we have FA01.2 and 1.3. So you have to decide where you want to filter traffic. You have to decide two different things: which interface you want to filter traffic on and in which direction. So this is FA00 connected to the RichNet. Initially, we're going to be filtering traffic coming in from the RichNet. So in this case, I'm going to filter traffic on FA00. And since I want to filter traffic as it comes in, I want to filter it in the inbound direction. If we did not filter traffic on this single interface out here, we have two sub interfaces on the inside. We would have to put access control list on both of those sub interfaces, which isn't a big deal, but just keep in mind you have to put it on the actual sub interfaces. So we're going to put an access control list on FA00 in the inbound direction. So first thing we want to do is write the access control list. We're going to use an extended access control list, a numbered access control list, and we're going to put 101. If you look at these numbers, standard access lists can have certain numbers and extended access lists can have certain numbers. There's also named access lists that you can use, but we're going to go with a extended access list, a numbered access list. Then you want to put the action. We're going to permit the traffic through, and then this is where you have to actually know what you're wanting to do. We want to filter traffic. We want to allow web traffic in. And for web traffic to work, we need to allow HTTP, HTTPS, and DNS traffic in. And in order for us to filter that, we need to know what protocols they use, and we need to be able to know what ports they use. So we're going to filter TCP traffic. We're going to allow traffic from any, because this is the source. We're going to allow traffic from anywhere out on the internet to get to our web server. We're going to allow it to a host, and we're going to put the public IP of your router. So the traffic coming in at this point is going to be destined to your public IP because the router has to NAT that traffic, and when the access list is evaluated, the traffic hasn't been NATed yet. So we're going to put the public IP. This is our pseudo public IP on the RichNet. And then we want to specify which port we want. And in this case, we want port 80 for HTTP traffic. We're also going to do the same thing for 443 for HTTPS traffic. And then we want to allow DNS, which DNS uses port 53, but DNS uses UDP. So don't accidentally put TCP there because it will not work properly. Standard DNS queries just uses UDP. So we've created our access control list to allow the three things we want to allow into our network in. Now we need to apply it to the interface in a direction. So FA00, the command for that is IP access group 101. You specify the number or the name, in this case 101, and then direction. We want to filter as it comes into the interface. So we put that on, and now if we look at our running config, if we look at our running config, we see the changes that we made. Under this interface FA00, we have IP access group 101N, and then we have our access list down here that says let these three things in. So another thing about access list, by default, the default action is a drop. So even though it doesn't say anything below this permit, everything else will be dropped. So that's the default action of an access list. So now we will come back out to our web server, our web client, and we should be able to get to my domain name. So we can still get to my domain name by name. So that proves our access control list is working. But just to verify that it actually is working, let's try to ping it and see if the ping gets through. I forgot to ping it before we started, so the ping is not making it through, which is good. So that proves our access control list is working. Let me go take the access control list off of the interface. So in this case, I'm just taking it off the interface. I'm not deleting the list. The list still, if we look under my interface, I no longer have that command IP access group 101N, but the list still exists down here. So I just took the list off so we can go make sure that ping did work before we put the access list on. So we see the ping works with the access list off. Now if I turn the access list back on, ping should be broken again. So ping is broken again. So that's proving the access list is working. Next thing we want to understand is sometimes when you add access lists, they have unintended consequences. In this case, we're going to try to browse out to the internet. And by the internet, I mean the RichNet web server. And we're going to try that. And oh no, it didn't work. So that's not good. So what happened? Well, what happened is we put an access control list on this router that says only let things going into the web server port, only let things in going to the secure web server port, and only let things going in for DNS. So what happens is my web traffic from this PC comes out, makes it over here to my web server, but then the return traffic gets to this router, and this router evaluates the access control list and says, oh hey, there's no rule that says let this traffic back in. So what we need to do to make this work is edit our access control list to add a rule to let the return traffic back in from the internet. So if you really understand TCP and how the ports work, then this will make perfect sense to you. So basically what we want to let in is we want to let in TCP traffic from any destination where the source port is 80, right? So what happens with a web connection is we connect from some high number random port out to the web server on port 80, and when that web server talks back to us, the traffic has a source port of 80 and the destination is going to a high number port. So we're going to put any for the destination address, and then we're going to put GT for greater than. I think GT is greater than, right? I forgot permit. GT is greater than, and then 1024. So basically we're saying, hey, we're going to assume our browsers are using high number ports like they're supposed to, and we want to allow that web traffic back in. We also need to do that for 443, and we also need to do that for 53, which is the DNS traffic, and we need to change that to UDP. Well, actually, yeah, we need to change that to UDP. All right, so the access list is already applied to the interface, so I don't have to go change it. So let's try our outbound web traffic again. And I typed the thing wrong. So now that works. So now what's happening is we're not filtering traffic on the outbound direction. It's getting to the server's sending the traffic back, it's getting to the router, and the router's saying, oh hey, that traffic's going back to the web port, I'm going to let it through, and that lets the traffic back through. So that's a very basic look at access control lists that we're going to implement in the lab. In a real world environment, you probably also want to filter traffic on the outbound direction. You know, if your PC gets some virus that's trying to connect out over port 1337 or something, you want to block that traffic. You only want to let out what needs to be let out, and we're going to do that when we configure the ASA. But that was a basic look at access control lists on the router. Oh yeah, hey, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you. If you mess up your access control list, like say I forgot to change this to TCP, I forgot to change it to UDP and left TCP, and if I look at my running config now, actually you can do show IP access list 101, and that shows you your list in a concise manner, and it also tells you how many matches you had on that rule. So that's kind of handy. Uh, So if you look at your list, you're like, oh, hey, that's messed up. I put this stupid TCP rule in there. I want to get rid of that. So if you do that, and you're like, oh, hey, I'll get rid of that list, and you're like, okay, conf t, and then you go no, and you grab this line, thinking you're going to get rid of that line, and you hit enter, and then you look at your running config again. Not so. Do. You'll notice that the access list is completely gone. That's just the way it works with extended access lists. Well, when you edit them in this manner, when you try to delete one line, the entire thing goes away. So most people, if they're manipulating their access list in this manner, they copy the list out into a text file, make the changes they want in the text file, then get rid of the list, and then paste it back in. Because otherwise, you're going to have to go retype everything or go up here and hope you display the running config so you can grab all the stuff you need. All right, you can grab this and get the ones you want, and then paste it in. And now the lines are back. So that's that. And that is all I wanted to say about access lists in this podcast.